Right. Hey everyone. If you're watching this, you've been thinking about breaking into tech and you've thought about different areas that you can get into, such as cloud, maybe cybersecurity, and someone told you learn Python first. But every tutorial or course that you found will either treat you as a 5 year old or actually they'll throw so much at you that you close the tab after 10 minutes. So this is not the way to learn. And my name is Anwar. I've taught computer science for over 11 years now to different groups of people, career changers, people in their 30s, 40s, people with zero coding experience or background. And I help people go from absolute scratch to landing roles in tech. So, in the next 7 minutes, I'm going to teach exactly 5 things, not 10, not 20, 5 things only Python actually runs on, not theory. So just working code on the screen right now. So let's go to the whiteboard. So every program that you've seen, whether it's Google Maps or banking app, this is just a computer storing and moving information around. The way we store information in Python is called a variable. As you can see, I've highlighted the actual box here. So think of it as a labeled box. And here I've got 3 boxes. The first one is labeled name and it has the value Anwar. Second one is labeled age and the value is 28. That's a number. No quotes, as you can see the difference between the two. Just a number. And then the third was is employed. Yeah, so that stores true. That's not a word. That's what we call a boolean. So that's Python's way of saying, or any language's way of saying yes or no, programming language. Now watch what happens when I run the code here. So you can see at the bottom, Python reads each box, pulls out the value and then prints it. That's all a variable is. It's just a label on a container. Now here's the thing that trips people up. The label doesn't actually change the value. If I change the age from 28 to 90, okay, Python doesn't care. So if I run that, as you can see, the value is changed to 90. Right, so you can name a variable anything: salary, job title, past exam. Okay, so let's go to data types. Okay, that's the next section that we're going to go through. What are data types? So variables store information, but what kind of information? Python needs to know that every value has a type. Yeah, every single value has a type. And this matters because Python should know how to handle each of them separately or individually. So a string, okay, so anything in quotes is basically considered a text or string. So a name, message, postcode, yeah. So any of these are examples of string. Python treats everything in quotes as just characters. Integers are whole numbers, yeah. So not decimal points, whole numbers. So these are for counting things. And then you've got float, which is decimal, so anything with a point. So for example, salary, percentage, pass rate, etc. And then the last one is boolean. So this is the one that most beginners sleep on, and they shouldn't, because boolean is just true or false. That's it. There's only 2 possible options. So it's a yes or a no. But it basically powers every single decision a program ever makes. Okay, so watch the code. So as you can see, it's typing, it's going through the different values, and then at the bottom is printing the type. Yeah, so that's why here it's printing the type of each variable. Yeah, so do you see how Python tells you the type? That's exactly the type, what the type function does. It shows exactly what kind of value you're working with. So when you get into cybersecurity or cloud scripts, when you read scripts or programs, you'll be checking the data types constantly, especially when you're reading data from config files or APIs. So you need to know your types to save yourself hours of debugging. Next is if statements. Okay, so right, we've got variables, we've got types. Now we actually need to start making decisions. As you can see, every decision in Python here follows the same pattern. You ask a question, yeah, and then The question either results to either a true or false. So the branch on the left is if this question results to a false, or if it results to a true. So access denied if you're less than 18, or if you're greater than or equal to 18, then you're welcome. Yeah. Now watch the code version. This is just a simple code version. As you can see, I have an if statement, and then I'm printing you're welcome. If the if statement is true, then otherwise you must access denied, it must be 18. This is what the diagram actually is showing here. Yeah, if I change the age to 15 instead of 18, then the access is denied. As you can see at the bottom is printed out. Yeah, so two different ages, two different outputs. One is access, you can access this, welcome, and then the other one is access denied. So when you're writing, for example, a cloud monitoring script or alerts, that alerts if the CPU goes above 80%, for example, you put that into a if statement. Yeah. Okay, so imagine now you've got a list of hundreds of servers and you need to check the status of each one. Are you going to write 100 lines of code? No, right? You just write one loop. So a loop basically tells Python, do this thing over and over and over again until I say stop. So as you can see, if I just if I run the program again, as you can see, the loop runs from 1 all the way up to 5. Yeah, so 1, it goes through 2, 3, then 4, then 5. In the code, I'm using this for I in range. Now, why is it 1 to 6 if it's running only 5 numbers? So in coding, you need to remember that everything starts from 0. So we don't want to count 0. And in Python, we say this is including 1, and then this is not including 6. So it stops at 5. That's why when you print, what's only printed is 5, and then it says the loop is complete. Yeah. And then this is another example where I have a list of students. So I've got Alice, Bob, Charlie, and then I have another loop. Now this looks a bit different. It's not like using a counter anymore. It's saying for student in students. So for each student, like Alice, Bob, Charlie, in all of the students. So this list of students, I just type hello and then student, and then it will print out hello Alice, hello Bob, hello Charlie, as you can see here. Yeah, so 9 lines of code and 9 lines of output from 9 lines of output from 10 lines of code. That's the power of loops. So you write once and it runs as many times as you need. Okay, so when you're provisioning it, for example, and I'm always giving you an example of how it relates to an area in cybersecurity or cloud. So if you're provisioning cloud infrastructure and you need to deploy a script to 100 machines, you don't write the script 100 times. You write one loop and then you scan a list of IP addresses for open ports. You do what you want in that loop, but you will use loops every single day in tech. Yeah. Okay, so on to the next part. So this is the last one. This is where everything starts to click together. So far we've been writing code from top to bottom, right? Everything runs once and it's done. But real programs actually don't work like that. So real programs do the same thing over and over again with different inputs. So I'll repeat that again. Real programs do the same thing over and over again with different inputs. So that's what a function does. So as you can see here, I've got a greet function. So the greet function takes in a list of, or an input of name, and it does one job and it only outputs a message with the person's name based on the input. So Anwar, for example, this is the output for that name when I input. This is the output for Joseph, and this is the output for Akhtar. So the point that you have to remember is that you basically, it has different inputs but the same sort of output structure. Yeah, because you can see it has the same message, but the only thing that changes is it matches the input that was given it. So a function is basically a machine, and you've got one function. I put in a name, I get back a message, and the logic could change. It doesn't have to be a name or message, it could be anything. Yeah, So look at the second function now. So this is the function that was based on this example. The second function is a lot more useful. Okay, so I'm calculating the salary, and to calculate the salary I need to know what's the hourly rate. So that's my two inputs, hourly rate and hours per week. That's my two inputs. When I get the hourly rate and the hours per week done, then I could create a variable. Remember what a variable was, which is just a stored container. Then the weekly salary would be the hourly rate. So let's say it was £40 an hour, times by I maybe worked 10 hours a week that week. So weekly I get about 400. Yeah, so that's my weekly. And then times that by 52. So 400 times by 52. Yeah, so I would get 20,000. That's my annual salary. So then what would return is my annual salary being that if I put an input of 20 and 40, then this will be my annual salary. So if I have 20 hours, my hourly rate is £20 or dollars per hour, let's say pounds, and I work 40 hours a week. So you do the math, that will be my annual salary. So functions are really, really useful. Okay, so 5 concepts here: variables, data types, if statements, loops, and functions. So this is the foundation, and this is what every Python script you will ever write is built on, whether you're in cloud, cybersecurity, data, software. And imagine 8 weeks of just pure digestible, very interactive and engaging learning such as this, which will cover basically all of the fundamentals all the way through hands-on projects that you can put in your CV, and real tools, real environments. This is the kind of work that actually gets you an interview. So if this clicked for you, and if you watched this and you thought, you know what, I can actually do this, then let's have a conversation. Hit the link below and book a call.